Chapter 1309. Wang Zhongjuan's face was full of smiles. In his mind, taking in the commander of the left was equivalent to taking over the throne. With the sixth prince as the emperor, the status of the Wang family would skyrocket. At this moment, he was in high spirits and didn't even notice the danger. Yi Qinghan looked at Wang Zhongjuan and smiled. He quickly moved his soul and rushed to the front of Wang Zhongjuan. In any case, Wang Zhongjuan was an ultimate powerhouse. Although he was a bit weaker than Huang Peng, in today's society, he could definitely stop an assassin. Therefore, as soon as Yi Qinghan arrived in front of Wang Zhongjuan, he refused to leave. Even when walking, he stuck close to Wang Zhongjuan and walked around him. Congratulations, commander of the left. Congratulations to the Wang family for getting a grandson-in-law. Congratulations, commander of the left. Congratulations to the Wang family for getting a grandson-in-law. Everyone laughed and chimed in. Congrats, 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 congrats. This is a happy occasion for the Wang family and also for the Snow Country's divine armor. On behalf of the Snow Country's imperial court, I present a congratulatory gift to congratulate Marshal Zhua and the daughter of the Wang family on your marriage. Marshal Snow's face was full of smiles as he walked over with several powerful governor-commanders. Congratulations to you too. This is a marriage between the Wang family and the Snow Empire. Commander of the left doesn't have any elders and you are his commander. Why don't you witness the marriage with me? Wang Zhongjuan laughed. Commander of the left and I are both assistant ministers. We are of the same generation. I don't think it's appropriate to do this. Commander of the Snow Empire looked at Yi Qinghan awkwardly as if he was taking advantage of him. But Yi Qinghan didn't think so. This time, he had to drag Commander of the Snow Empire down with him. One more expert meant one more layer of safety. Commander of the Snow Empire is too polite. You are my military instructor. How can we be of the same generation? Sir, please take a seat. Yi Qinghan gestured with his hand. Seeing that Yi Qinghan respected him so much, but he contacted the assassins of the Yantian Pavilion to kill Yi Qinghan, Marshal Yun couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Being able to become the senior of the Marshal Zhua made him feel proud. He stood side by side with Wang Zhongjuan excitedly, waiting for the bride and groom to propose a toast. The various overlords, clan masters, and sect masters all presented their gifts and blessings. They also took the opportunity to get to know the Marshal of the left. Yi Qinghan accepted all of it with a smile and bowed in return. The thank you ceremony continued until noon. Everyone was eating and chatting with their friends, so they didn't feel bored at all. They were preparing to formally invite the bride and toast the elders. At this moment, a deep voice suddenly sounded from the periphery. Goddess Sex Lady Fang Xiaoyi has arrived. Lord Ling Huanyu has arrived. As soon as he finished speaking, a man and a woman arrived at the scene at the same time. They seemed to be competing. Their cultivation levels were about the same, and their battle prowess was extremely strong. They could definitely defeat Tian Ke Lei from the Heavenly Imperial Prefecture. The two of them were not on the same side. As soon as they appeared, they were hostile to each other. A strong fighting spirit flashed in their eyes, but they restrained themselves very well. Fang Xiaoyi's beauty was not much inferior to Xiaoye's. Holy light filled the air, making people not dare to look directly at her. Compared to Xiaoye, Xiaoye's aura was more powerful, making people not dare to look directly at her. Ling Huanyu was extremely handsome and undefeatable. Although he was a lone cultivator, his battle prowess was definitely much stronger than those disciples of the major factions. Even Wang Longtao was overshadowed in front of him. As expected of a supreme lone cultivator who was ranked in the top 5 of the younger generation. He could tell as soon as he appeared. Haha, I didn't expect the 2 elite lords to also come. It's really an honor for the Wang clan. The people of the Wang clan welcomed them. The 2 of them had a higher status than the clan master. Although they were only at the peak of the upper middle stage, their battle prowess was even more terrifying than an overlord's. More importantly, they were young and had great potential. Wang clan master is too courteous. Master is in seclusion, and Xiaoyi is representing the goddess sect to congratulate the Wang clan and Marshal Zhua on the marriage. I came a bit late, so I specially brought 2 jars of special grade, 7 steps drunk. Please don't blame me. Feng Xiaoyi's white clothes fluttered in the wind. Her tall and straight body was not like a man's. Her voluptuous body was covered by the wide divine robe, but her figure could not be hidden. Feng Xiaoyi immediately raised her body and looked at Yi Qinghan. She smiled sweetly and twirled her fingers. 2 jars of wine appeared in her hands. It was the tyrannical 7 steps drunk. Moreover, it was even better than the one Yi Qinghan drank last time. It was priceless. 7 steps drunk was produced by the goddess sect. Even if there were imitations outside, the taste and effect were fundamentally different from the authentic 7 steps drunk. Yi Qinghan looked at her and smiled. He bowed slightly and cupped his fists in return. Thank you for bringing such a big gift, Your Highness Feng. I am very grateful. Yi Qinghan took the 7 steps drunk and put it back into his body with a tremble of his fingers. Ling Huanyu greets Marshal Zhua and family head Wang. We are itinerant cultivators and don't have any valuable gifts. We just happen to get a treasure, but we haven't been able to understand its mysteries for a long time. I'm willing to share it with Mr. Zhua. I heard that Mr. Zhua is extremely intelligent and no one in the world can compare with you. I hope you can help me understand the supreme mysteries. Ling Huanyu stood proudly and looked down at everyone with disdain. His eyes were deep and he was neither servile nor overbearing. His voice was like the sound of a deep bell, melodious and melodious. Yi Qinghan was quite surprised. As one of the 5 great kings, the others couldn't stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Their wisdom was incomparable to that of ordinary people. If they couldn't understand the mysteries of a secret art, it must be a secret art from the antiquity age. It should be a secret art left behind by the realm lord. After the wedding, we can study it together. I know a little about antiques from the antiquity age. Maybe I can help you. Yi Qinghan was also quite curious. He gestured with his hand and said, Friends, please take a seat at the same table as the 6th prince. After the ceremony is over, I'll entertain you one by one. Now, only the disciples of the realm lord, Ling Yan, and the young master of the Shao family hadn't appeared. Otherwise, all the elites in the world would be here. All the customs were over. Immediately, someone called the bride out to bow and toast. Then, they entered the bridal chamber. It was a very ancient wedding. The witnesses were Marshal Yun and Wang Zhongjuan. Wang Zhongjuan was from the older generation. Naturally, he was the main host. Yi Qinghan and Wang Yuqing entered the room hand in hand. They were wearing red robes and a shawl. They were both a beauty that could topple a country and a genius of the empire. They were well matched in terms of social status. It was definitely the most festive wedding. Wang Zhongjuan's smile was a lot younger. He said with a smile, I should be sad to see my granddaughter getting married. However, I'm very happy to see her marry Mr. Zhua. I hope that Yuqing will take on the responsibility of a wife in the future. She will help Marshal Zhua deal with the country's affairs better. Don't let him worry about the family matters unless you have no other choice. Do you understand? Yuqing understands. Thank you for your teachings, grandfather. Wang Yuqing replied respectfully. Outside the room, Wang Yuru looked at Wang Yuqing enviously. This was probably the only time that such a grand wedding would happen. Unfortunately, she wasn't the main character. Indeed, this wedding was indeed grand. Even the crown prince's wedding wouldn't have so many people coming to celebrate. Yi Qinghan seemed to be humbly accepting the teachings of his elders. However, his divine sense was slowly spreading out in all directions to find the real location of the assassins. However, he didn't find out who the real assassin was. At this moment, the funeral had just begun. Kuang Wu Zhan's first anniversary. I will add more chapters tomorrow. It might be a little late, but I will definitely add more chapters. Thank you to all the readers who have really read the books this year. I also call for more readers to support me. Every chapter you subscribe to represents an achievement. Please give me a free recommendation ticket. Chapter 1310. The assassin was extremely stealthy. Even Xiao Yu had disappeared, as though she was never here. However, Yi Qinghan was sure that Xiao Yu was still nearby. If an invisible assassin couldn't be sensed by the Realm Lord's divine sense, then this assassin was too strong. It wasn't his strength, but his concealment technique. His mentality during battle was enough to shock others. At this moment, Yan Yunbei also disappeared without a trace. After searching for a long time, Yi Qinghan discovered that Yan Yunbei's concealment technique and mentality were even more terrifying. Although he had just entered the Paramount God realm, he was already comparable to those senior assassins. With Yan Yunbei's help, Yi Qinghan felt much more relaxed. However, he didn't let down his guard. First bow to the heavens and earth. Wang Zhongjuan had already presided over the wedding. Yi Qinghan and Wang Yuqing slowly knelt on the ground and bowed to the heavens and earth. At this moment, in order to prevent others from discovering his realm lord's divine sense, he had adjusted his soul to the peak Paramount God realm. As long as he didn't want to, nobody would know that his soul was controlling everything within 100 meters. A domain was secretly formed. Second bow to the parents. This time, Yi Qinghan didn't kneel on the ground. Instead, he bowed 90 degrees. This was already giving them a lot of face. Husband and wife bow to each other. And just as Yi Qinghan and Wang Yuqing bowed to each other, before the ceremony was completed, a mournful cry resounded. It was as though a funeral sound had enveloped the heavens and earth. A strand of sword chi pierced through the void like a flash of light. Heaven and earth instantly became still as though time and space had stopped moving. The peak attack of a paramount god actually caused these family heads and overlords to stiffen. They couldn't move at all. A strand of white clothes fluttered in the wind. It was as though a paramount god had descended. With a thin body and a sinister mask, it pierced Yi Qinghan's throat in the blink of an eye. It was impossible to guard against. The silhouette was so graceful that it caught everyone off guard. Who would have thought that the assassin would attack a second before the wedding ceremony was completed? The wedding was like a funeral. The attacks of extreme-level experts made everyone's hair stand on end, the austere aura causing the weak to faint on the spot. There were even some whose bloodlines exploded, their vitality erased, dying miserably on the spot. When the sword reached Yi Qinghan's throat, Wang Zhongjuan happened to be right in front of Yi Qinghan. He couldn't even make a move and could only watch as the sword cut open Yi Qinghan's head. However, something changed in an instant. Yi Qinghan did not put up any resistance. The sword seemed to pierce through the void as it headed straight for Wang Zhongjuan. Boom! Wang Zhongjuan was greatly alarmed. His vision had been blocked by Yi Qinghan, and he had been completely defenseless before. Now, he could only unleash 30 to 40% of his strength in an instant. He clasped his palms together in an attempt to control the sharp sword. Boom! The sword beam was sharp and unstoppable. With a lightning-like momentum, it shattered Wang Zhongjuan's hands. The assassin was taken aback. However, it was already too late to stop his attack. Wang Zhongjuan was sent flying over 1,000 meters away, smashing through tens of buildings. Bang! Bush! Wang Zhongjuan's old body smashed through the buildings and drew a line of fire across the ground. The blood vessels in his body burst, and half of his vitality was gone. The assassin was stunned. Wang Zhongjuan was stunned. The people outside were even more stunned. Just as the Divine Master was about to make a move, his figure was exposed. However, he had no choice but to stop because what the King of Hell had pierced was only an illusion. Not even a drop of blood was spilled. It was impossible to imagine how fast Yi Qinghan's speed was. This was a plot that Yi Qinghan was involved in. He used the assassin to severely injure Wang Zhongjuan. If the effect was good, he could have killed Wang Zhongjuan with a single strike. Then, the Wang family would have lost half of its power. Then, as the grandson-in-law, he would have taken over the Wang family. The vicious plan was meticulously planned and perfect. However, it was built on terrifying strength. If Wang Zhongjuan couldn't dodge the assassin's attack, his fate was self-evident. He would definitely die on the spot. The King of Hell released his divine sense. His eyes were like the scorching sun as he scanned the area. Finally, he found Yi Qinghan behind martial snow. With an evil smile, he threw Wang Yuqing to the side of the Divine Bird's dining table. The King of Hell was immediately enraged. He didn't expect that he would become Yi Qinghan's sword. Sush! Swoosh, swoosh. The sword turned into 10,000 sword shadows. It pierced through the void and directly attacked Yi Qinghan behind Marshal Snow. Boom! Marshal Snow's body was covered in a dazzling snowy light. The Snow World Army Commander's armor was 3 times stronger than the Heavenly Fault Godly armor. It could be considered a pseudo-world weapon. The heavy sword that appeared in his hand was almost a pseudo-world weapon. Marshal Snow madly pounced towards the assassin. The assassin's sword was aimed at him. He had no choice but to resist. Bang! Boom! The 2 attacks collided. Chi soared through the galaxy. Many experts were blown away. The outer area of the Wang family was in a mess. Bang! Yi Qinghan pressed his palm against Marshal Snow's back. He shouted in a low voice, "I will increase my strength. You attack." Dense snow elemental supreme godly power surged from Marshal Snow's back. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped, freezing everything within 100 miles. The experts that participated in the wedding banquet all worked together to resist the aftershocks and the low temperature. They brought their children and fled. Fang Xiaoyi and Ling Huanyu didn't expect that there would be an assassination. Under the attack of the aftershocks, they calmly took away the 6th prince and the others. Before the divine bird left, it took the spirit deity Peach with it. It cursed, "You bastard! You dare to ruin my plans. Master, kill them. I will leave first." The King of Hell and Marshal Snow fought to the death. Marshal Snow wasn't a match for the King of Hell. However, with the support of his godly weapon and pseudo-world treasure armor, as well as Yi Qinghan's godly power, he was able to exchange over 1,000 blows with the King of Hell. His sword was like lightning. In an instant he exchanged over 1,000 blows. Sparks flew like flowing light. Yi Qinghan stuck close to Marshal Snow like a sticky candy. Marshal Snow had no choice but to participate in this battle. He couldn't shake off Yi Qinghan's entanglement. He was tied down by Yi Qinghan and had no choice but to attack the King of Hell. The King of Hell was infuriated. His figure kept disappearing. The spatial fluctuations were extremely small. Marshal Snow couldn't detect him, but Yi Qinghan could. Every time, he would instantly pull down Marshal Snow's defenses. The 2 sides fought for 3 breaths of time. Only then did Wang Zhongjuan catch his breath. His face was red. Clearly he was furious. "I am so angry. King of Hell, you and I have minded our own business. Today, you ruined my Wang family's wedding and almost killed me. I will kill you." Boom! Wang Zhongjuan instantly controlled 1,000 miles. His domain was formed. The Wang family's defensive array was activated. Divine light shot into the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, Wang Zhongjuan was like an eagle spreading its wings as he grabbed at the Lord of Hell. With his support, Yi Qinghan and Marshal Yun felt a lot more relaxed. The Lord of Hell's expression changed slightly under his mask, and he quickly disappeared into thin air without leaving a trace. In an instant, the chaotic crowd fell into a dead silence. No one wanted to be the target of an attack. Staying where they were was the best choice. The Master God's expression changed slightly. He thought that the King of Hell could kill Yi Qinghan with a wave of his hand. However, the assassination had failed. Now he had still failed. A cold light flashed. He held a sword in his hand and stared at Yi Qinghan, who was behind Marshal Snow. Chapter 1311. The 3 strongest emissaries of Hell, Di Ling, Ji Sha, and Si Wu, finally made their move. The 3 of them had split up in 3 different directions, forming a triangle. They were all there to ambush the Divine Lord, but the King of Hell hadn't killed Yi Qinghan yet. For a moment, they didn't know whether they should stop the Divine Lord from interfering or join forces with the King of Hell to kill Yi Qinghan. Clang! The God Lord drew his sword and was about to attack when suddenly, his hair stood on end. He swung his sword at the empty space to his left. The overgod weapon shattered the void, and a black hole appeared. A figure shot out from the black hole, transforming into a dragon that coiled around the God Lord's left side. The dagger in his hand was like the fangs of a viper, capable of destroying one's defense. Boom! The dagger pierced through the God armor, heading toward the Lord God's waist. As soon as it made contact with the armor, the Lord God was shocked. The armor was strong enough to block a full-power attack from a paramount god, but as soon as the dagger made contact with the armor, the Lord God raised his hand and stabbed it into the right armpit. Pucci! The God Lord screamed. His right hand clamped down on the assassin's weapon, and his left hand punched the assassin's body. The assassin's body was like a snake coiling around the God Lord's golden body. He was extremely fast, and his movement technique was Yi Qinghan's dragon coiling eagle hands. It was Yan Yunbei. However, he had only just become a over-god. It was already impressive that he could last this long. His movement technique couldn't keep up with the God Lord's, and he was thrown off in the blink of an eye. Die! The God Lord finally broke free from Yan Yunbei. He slashed out with his sword, and Yan Yunbei was trapped in his domain. Boom! Waves of energy surged like a mountain flood, drowning Yan Yunbei and knocking him into the ground. Boom! The ground outside the Wang family's residence cracked. Yan Yunbei coughed up blood and was sent flying. What are you waiting for? It wasn't easy to lure the God Lord into the encirclement. Brothers of hell, kill him! The divine bird in the distance suddenly cried out in an ear-piercing voice. The God Lord's face turned green. The expressions of the three emissaries of hell also changed. Siwu, you go kill Zwafeng. We'll stop the sect master. Di Ling and Ji Sha quickly rushed towards the divine lord. Their figures flickered, appearing and disappearing. At this moment, the Lord God was burning with rage. He had paid the price of a pseudo-world artifact, yet he had been betrayed. Regardless of whether or not Hell had made an agreement with Yi Qinghan, their actions had made it clear that they wanted to take all the spoils of war for themselves. Hell, I will destroy you! The divine lord roared. His sword swept out to wipe out the 9 provinces. In that instant, the Wang family's surroundings were thrown into chaos. Yi Qinghan left and came behind Marshal Snow. He fought against Siwu alone. Wang Zhongjuan and Marshal Snow worked together to fight against the King of Hell. Yan Yunbei and the 2 assassins fought against the Divine Masters. Although their cultivations were weaker, they won in terms of speed and accuracy. If they attacked, they would definitely injure the Divine Masters. For a moment, the sky was dyed red. The Wang family's power was fully displayed. All the experts came out and rushed towards the Divine Lord and the King of Hell. The King of Hell was entangled by Wang Zhongjuan. Marshal Snow used his divine armor and heavy sword to fight against the King of Hell. In addition, there were 3 domain chiefs beside him. They were all top-notch existences in the Snowboarder army. The King of Hell was immediately defeated. After all, this was not an assassination, but a head-on battle. You guys leave? The King of Hell realized that one wrong step would lead to many more mistakes. If he had killed them in one strike, it would not be like this. Boom! Yi Qinghan mobilized the power of heaven and earth and punched through the sky. The bracelet turned into a glove and blocked the sharp sword energy. He punched Siwu away. Damn it! The Divine Lord cursed. He sent the 3 assassins flying with one strike and flew away. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Ji Sha and Di Ling glanced at Yan Yunbei. They did not know who he was, but they did not want to be entangled with him. They turned around and pounced at Siwu. In just a few breaths, the periphery of the Wang family was destroyed. Almost 100 direct descendants were killed. The experts of the Wang family rushed to the rescue, but dozens of them were injured. At this moment, the whole place was sealed. They wanted to stop the King of Hell from leaving. However, Di Ling and the others were too powerful. If they wanted to leave, no ordinary people could stop them. The people of the God of Wealth City did not attack. They were just defending. The 3 emissaries of hell had left. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a smile. He looked at Wang Zhongjuan and Marshal Snow fighting against the King of Hell. He did not interfere. He hoped that they would both be injured. The King of Hell's strength was absolutely terrifying. His weak and thin body could explode with the power comparable to the wild rock. Wang Zhongjuan was already injured. Now, he could not stop him. The glory of the God of Wealth City will not be blasphemed. Let's work together to suppress him. Wang Zhongjuan roared. Many experts of the God of Wealth City rose into the sky. Powerful attacks fell like raindrops, bombarding the king of hell. Flames shot everywhere and burned the void. The king of hell was caught in the flames of war. His body was almost torn apart. He coughed out blood and flew backward. Swoosh! The king of hell did not want to continue fighting. He hid in the void and wanted to escape. However, Marshal Snow's sword slashed him out. Wang Zhongjuan threw the divine weapon in his hand and hit the king of hell's back. The king of hell was severely injured. His body shook. His face under the mask was pale. Blood splattered everywhere. Bang, bang, bang. Dozens of supreme gods of the god of Wealth City worked together to attack the king of hell and sent him back to the ground. Mournful groans sounded everywhere. It seemed that a funeral was in progress. However, it was not Yi Qinghan's funeral. It was the king of hell's funeral. Groan. The king of hell was furious. A black copper coin appeared in his hand. He wiped the void and a string of coins appeared. Coins fall, hell appears. Devour. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The copper coin in the king of hell's hand spun rapidly in the air. It formed a huge black hole. It was as if the real hell had appeared. He stepped on the hell and wanted to use the devouring power of hell to escape. Wang Zhongjuan was furious. He rushed toward the king of hell without caring about anything. He wanted to kill him. After all, the devouring power of hell needed time. Boom! The divine weapon in Wang Zhongjuan's hand was as fast as lightning. He attacked the king of hell. Bang! The king of hell was obviously angry. He mobilized the power of hell. The dagger in his hand shot out a black lightning bolt toward Wang Zhongjuan. Boom! 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 Wang Zhongjuan was sent flying thousands of miles away by this strike. The void collapsed, and his body was torn into pieces. He almost died a miserable death. At this moment, Yi Qinghan moved. He stepped on the ground and clawed at the king of hell's neck. The king of hell was already injured. Once he activated the gates of hell, he would lose 90% of his power temporarily. He was no longer a threat. Boom! The devouring power of the gates of hell was very strong. Just as the king of hell was about to open the gate and leave, Yi Qinghan rushed in. Boom! Yi Qinghan hugged the king of hell tightly. The two of them were teleported hundreds of millions of miles away through the dark tunnel. The two of them collided in the tunnel and messed up the teleportation point. The space storm tore everything apart and activated the defensive power of the feather spirit robe. I need a free recommendation ticket from QQ Reading. Chapter 13:12. Everyone watched as Yi Qinghan grabbed the Lord of Hell, only to be sucked into the endless darkness. Yan Yunbei's expression changed slightly, but the divine bird did not care. It only hurriedly signaled Tong Tong not to panic. Good people don't live long, but scourges live for thousands of years. He won't die. This kind of trash is even worse than me. Why would he send himself to his death? The divine bird ran to Tong Tong's shoulder and whispered. No matter how soft it was, the people around could hear it clearly. Fang Xiaoyi, Ling Huanyu, and the others' mouths twitched. They did not know if it was a blessing or a misfortune to have such a spirit pet. Hey, Brother Bei, long time no see. The divine bird saw that everyone was staring at it, so it immediately flapped its wings and said to Yan Yunbei. Yan Yunbei rolled his eyes coldly and turned to leave, quickly disappearing from the god of Fortune City. The god of Fortune City had suffered a great loss. Part of the buildings were destroyed by the attacks of the Lord of God and the Lord of Hell. There were more than 1,000 casualties, and their cultivation was not weak. This caused the god of Fortune City to be extremely dissatisfied with the Lord of Hell and the Lord of God. They wanted to declare war. Marshal Yun's face was pale. After holding it in for a long time, he finally could not hold it in. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted on the spot. He was only at the pinnacle of the supreme realm. After fighting with the Lord of Hell for such a long time with Yi Qinghan's forceful support, he had used up more than half of his life force. His life force was constantly dispersing. It would take a few years for him to recover. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was holding the Lord of Hell's arms tightly. He was dancing crazily in the space-time tunnel, almost ignoring the space storm that could shatter the divine armor. Let go of me. A sharp ear-piercing voice tore through the sky. The destructive power of the storm was even more terrifying. Boom boom boom. The two of them were rolling in the storm. Yi Qinghan had the feather spirit coat to protect his body, so he ignored the storm. His iron arms tightened, almost squeezing the Lord of Hell out of shape. Boom. Space and time changed, and the two of them were teleported to an unknown place. Suddenly, there was a bright light, and a tearing force threw the two of them out. Bang! Yi Qinghan slammed into a mountain. His body was in pain, and his arms were loosened. However, he took the opportunity to grab the mask on the Lord of Hell's face. A head of black hair fell to the ground, revealing a beautiful face. It was Xiaoyu. Her face was pale, and blood was dripping from the corner of her mouth. She rolled on the ground for more than 10 times, and she was glaring at Yi Qinghan angrily. Yi Qinghan crawled up from the ground. He didn't have time to look around. He stared at Xiaoyu and grinned evilly. So it's you, schemer. I wonder if you have foreseen your own ending? Suofeng, you're brave enough to chase after me and even see my face. You can only die. Xiaoya's eyes flashed coldly, and her beautiful face was filled with killing intent. The dagger appeared in her hand once again, and her aura reached its peak. Step by step, she closed in on Yi Qinghan. Ha, Xiaoya, oh Xiaoya, do you think I'm here to die? If the great Lord of Hell has such low intelligence, then I've underestimated you. Yi Qinghan laughed wildly. Not only did he not retreat, but he also released his aura and pressed down on Xiaoya. What do you mean? Xiaoya frowned and asked. Money drops, and Hell's Gate appears. That's one of the hellish assassin's trump cards. But to use it, you have to sacrifice your life essence. That's why you were able to injure Wang Zhongjuan so severely. Right now, you don't even have 10% of your power left. The more you use your god power, the more your body won't be able to handle it. If you try to fight me to the death, the only outcome is that your spiritual space will shatter, and you'll be reduced to a mortal. Yi Qinghan stepped toward Xiaoya, explaining the side effects of the hellish forbidden art. Xiaoya's pupils shrank, and she stared at Yi Qinghan. Her eyes were filled with shock, and she asked coldly, Who are you? How do you know so much? Yi Qinghan sneered, and his bracelet turned crazy. He said coldly, Don't ask me who I am. I'm only asking you now. Will you become a cripple, or will you be used by me? Used by you? Dream on. Even if my life force essence is greatly damaged, I can still take your life. Xiaoya threatened coldly. Give me the supreme snow lotus, and I'll spare your life. I won't give up until I reach the Yellow River. That damned old man didn't expect to take in such a useless disciple like you. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly, and his emotions were ice cold. He didn't have the slightest bit of pity for the fairer sex. He waved his saber, and it tore through the surrounding mountains, and fiercely slammed toward Xiaoya. Whoosh! Xiaoya tore through space and disappeared without a trace. She suddenly appeared behind Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan rose into the sky and dodged the attack. The long saber came down from above, and its aura could swallow mountains and rivers. The earth cracked and the mountains split. Bang! Xiaoya didn't have time to dodge, and she forcefully took it head-on. The supreme power destroyed the sky, and the short dagger unleashed a violent aura. Boom! Their auras rushed to the clouds. One of them smashed into the void, while the other attacked the underworld. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. That Xiaoya couldn't hold on any longer. The bone-eroding pain caused her soul to scatter, and the life force in her body was collapsing more and more. She was sent flying while spewing blood. Zuofeng, I won't kill you today, but I'll show you in the future. Xiaoya was furious. She tore through the void, and her figure disappeared again. However, Yi Qinghan had the divine sense of a realm lord. As long as she moved randomly in a different space, he would be able to track her. Boom! Yi Qinghan stabilized his body, and his saber tore through space, and directly blasted Xiaoya out. Since I'm here today, I have no intention of letting you go. Yi Qinghan forcefully blocked Xiaoya's path. Xiaoya was unwilling. She thought that Yi Qinghan had discovered her by coincidence, so she tore through the void again to leave. However, she couldn't even hold on for 3 breaths of time before she was sent flying. Her injuries were getting worse, and her spiritual space was somewhat unstable, on the verge of shattering. The spiritual space was like a godhead. If the godhead was shattered, could there still be divine power? Xiaoya's face was pale. She no longer resisted Yi Qinghan, and she no longer hid in space. She rushed into the depths of the mountain range, hiding in the wilderness. The depths were filled with white fog, and it was difficult to see beyond 1,000 meters. The spiritual energy was overwhelming, and Yi Qinghan didn't know where this place was. It was also possible that this was Xiaoya's first time here. After all, the 9 worlds were too big. It was so big that many places were untouched by humans. Yi Qinghan sneered. He put away the bracelet, locked onto Xiaoya with his divine sense, and quickly chased after her. The two of them chased each other in the depths of the mountain range, hiding behind rocks. However, Xiaoya couldn't shake off Yi Qinghan no matter how hard she tried. Damn it, how can this guy lock onto my position so quickly? Is his divine sense so powerful? Xiaoya was flustered and exasperated. She couldn't use even a 10,000th of her powerful strength, and could only be suppressed by Yi Qinghan. Xiaoya had no choice but to restrain her divine power and life aura, and rush into a crack in the mountain range on foot. This was equivalent to cutting off her own path of death. Perhaps she could escape Yi Qinghan's pursuit. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan's divine sense was locked onto her body. He had already discovered her when she entered the crack in the mountain range, and rushed into the crack in one stride. The mountain path was steep, and there were many caves hanging halfway up the mountain, as if they were the caves of some kind of creature. Chapter 13:13. The cave was like a bottomless black hole. It was like a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows. The entrance was about the same size, about 100 meters in diameter. If it was really a nest of some kind of creature, it would be extremely terrifying. Yi Qinghan looked around. There were 6 entrances. Xiaoya entered the middle cave and followed closely behind. It was extremely dark in the depths. The wind was blowing, indicating that the 6 tunnels were connected. However, divine sense was restricted in the depths. It couldn't even extend 10 meters. There was no way to find out if there were any creatures or where Xiaoya was. Yi Qinghan frowned. Listening to the wind, he could clearly distinguish objects within 100 meters. Shwa shwa shwa. Yi Qinghan increased his speed. The feather spirit robe's defense was at its peak. Since this place could seal his divine sense, the other sector lords naturally wouldn't be able to find out. The sector lord's divine sense was fully activated. They could barely sense a distance of 300 to 500 meters. Dong dong dong. Drip drip drip. Woo woo woo. The sound of running came from the depths. It was deep and hurried. The clear sound of water dripping could be heard. Occasionally, there would be the sound of wind blowing in the cave. It was extremely eerie. Boom. Yi Qinghan stomped his feet and moved like a rainbow. However, the stones in the cave didn't move at all. The materials of the stones were definitely extremely terrifying. They were materials used to forge divine weapons. Xiaoya clutched her chest and ran frantically, hoping to escape Yi Qinghan's pursuit. Her face was getting paler. She didn't know what was in the depths, but she could only try her best to escape. Unfortunately, her speed was too slow compared to Yi Qinghan's. After a few 100,000 meters, Yi Qinghan's footsteps could be heard clearly. The footsteps were like lightning striking Xiaoya's heart. She was getting more and more anxious. However, there was no turning or other tunnel. She could only continue forward. After another hour, Yi Qinghan and Xiaoya were less than 300 meters apart. However, a faint light appeared in front of them, illuminating their silhouettes. Lord of Hell, do you still want to run? Yi Qinghan asked casually. Zuofeng, don't force me to fight you to the bitter end. Xiaoya scolded angrily. Ha, Miss Xiaoyu, you're so naive. You couldn't hurt me outside, but here, I have nothing to worry about. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Yi Qinghan laughed loudly. His voice echoed in the cave for a long time. What do you want? Why don't we make a deal? Xiaoyu covered her wound and slowly retreated. Her injury had reached a point where she could no longer control it. If she delayed any longer, she would be in big trouble. I want you, Yi Qinghan said slowly. Dream on. Don't even think about it. Xiaoye refused without hesitation. I just want you to submit to me. Miss, you're thinking too much. Yi Qinghan smiled wickedly. That's even more impossible. Xiaoye angrily retorted. Sigh, I originally had a tender heart for the fairer sex, but Xiang Yu disdained me. Yi Qinghan shook his head and sighed. As he spoke, he had already closed in on Xiaoye by more than 200 meters. Xiaoye was already in front of him. Seeing her flustered expression made him feel especially good. Thinking back to how that old man threatened me last time, it shouldn't be too much for me to threaten his disciple now, right? Yi Qinghan stared at Xiaoye. Xiaoye was already injured to the point where she couldn't resist. Her spiritual space was about to shatter. Xiaoye was going crazy. She felt that Yi Qinghan wasn't as simple as she thought. He seemed to know her master. Who are you? Normal people can't have any interactions with my master. You can't possibly understand him either. You're at most a low-level fighter, and you can't possibly be on par with me. It's also impossible for you to have any interactions with him. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan suspiciously and questioned him coldly. If you submit, you'll naturally know everything. You won't be able to escape today. I advise you not to struggle. I want a complete Lord of Hell, not a good-looking piece of trash, Yi Qinghan said calmly. You want me to submit? Impossible. Even if I submit, my master won't agree. Do you want to be hunted down by him? Xiaoye threatened coldly. Yi Qinghan asked in surprise, that old man isn't dead yet? You're the one who's dead. Show some respect when you speak. Xiaoye said angrily. Yi Qinghan shrugged and said calmly, don't talk about you. I dare to say that in front of that old man as well. It's not the first time I've said that to him, but he didn't get angry. You know him? You've seen him before? Xiaoye was a little suspicious. Her master hadn't appeared for many years. She guessed that Yi Qinghan wasn't that old either. I've seen him before. Not only that, he even threatened me. In the end, I slapped him twice. Yi Qinghan couldn't stop laughing. He took a step forward and pressed down on Xiaoye's thin shoulders. He said hoarsely, don't resist. You still have a chance to reach the peak. Otherwise, I'll destroy your spiritual space, shatter your clothes, and throw you into the crowd. Xiaoye's hair stood on end. She angrily glared at Yi Qinghan, wishing she could glare him to death. Despicable! Xiaoye angrily roared. Thank you for the compliment. It's not just the first time someone has scolded me like that. However, the method is very effective. I've tried it once and it's accurate. Yi Qinghan shrugged indifferently. Ever since he got together with the divine bird, he no longer knew how to write the word face. Xiaoye was so angry that she felt helpless. Her body was trembling. She gritted her teeth and asked, speak. What's your goal? I want your body or your submission. Choose one. I'm very fair. I like to let others have the right to choose. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a sinister smile as he said calmly. What's the difference? You're forcing me. Xiaoye angrily roared. Yi Qinghan pressed her shoulders and gently pushed her against the stone wall. He looked down at her beautiful face and said calmly, of course there's a difference. If you choose the former, I'll forcefully push you down right now and then drag you out as a public display. If you choose to submit, I'm very willing to respect you. I'll treat you as a good friend. Xiaoye raised her head and looked at Yi Qinghan. Their faces were so close that she couldn't help but want to retreat. However, there was a stone wall behind her and she couldn't retreat at all. She could only smile. Unfortunately, her smile was too fake. We can also become good friends. There's no need for me to submit, right? If you threaten me now, you can only make my body submit to you. If you treat me with sincerity, you can make my heart submit to you. Xiaoye persuaded. Yi Qinghan raised his hand and slapped her bright little head as if he was dealing with a child. Xiaoye was so angry that she almost went berserk. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? If you're at your peak, you should be chasing after me and making me submit to you. Do you think I'll give you the chance? Yi Qinghan mocked. Xiaoye flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted angrily, I'm a supreme expert. Can't you show me some respect? Yi Qinghan's large hand pressed down on her collar. His fingertips touched her creamy skin. It was exquisite and soft. It was extremely comfortable. Xiaoye was so frightened that she immediately shut her mouth. If I were to tear your clothes, would that be considered a form of respect for your beauty? Yi Qinghan stared at Xiaoye and asked very gently. Chapter 13-14. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan's serious expression, and her pores opened. Her hands felt weak, and she couldn't resist even if she wanted to. This was probably the closest she had ever been to a member of the opposite sex in her life, and she didn't know what to do. Don't. Xiaoye's face was pale as she begged in fear. Don't you want respect? You're such a beautiful lady, and I'm so shameless. If I don't push you down, wouldn't I be disrespecting someone as beautiful as you? Yi Qinghan asked seriously. You're not shameless, and you don't need to respect me. Xiaoye was scared out of her wits, and she spoke without thinking. Since I don't need to respect you, then I won't hold back. Yi Qinghan leaned over and kissed her. His big hand held onto Xiaoye's neck, and he was deeply intoxicated by the kiss. His tongue rolled around her tongue, and a numbing sensation spread throughout her body. Xiaoye's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She had never experienced such a feeling before. She couldn't even use her supreme strength, and she didn't even have the strength to stand. If Yi Qinghan wasn't holding her chin, she would probably have collapsed to the ground. Yi Qinghan retracted his tongue and smiled evilly. Not bad, and you're still a virgin. Looks like that damned old man has been secretly helping you establish your power, helping you build hell. No wonder your combat ability is so weak. You bastard! What? Cough cough. Xiaoye was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She raised her hand and was about to hit him. Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed her arm. He shrugged and said, You're the one who said you want it, and you're also the one who told me not to respect you. How can you blame me? Xiaoye didn't know how to explain herself, and her eyes reddened. She was a limit paragon, but she didn't have much life experience. In hell, she was high and mighty and spoke coldly. In the outside world, she only killed people and didn't speak. How could she stand up to Yi Qinghan's bullying? Yi Qinghan solemnly said, Life is far from what you think it is. Since your master is known to be able to foresee the destruction of the heavens and even the death of a supreme world lord, he must have foreseen that you would face such a calamity. Since he sent you to find me, it means that he wishes for you to submit to me. Little girl, submit to me peacefully. I guarantee that in this world, other than me, no one can bully you. Xiaoye curled her lips as tears streamed down her cheeks. She had never been so humiliated in her entire life. That Swan Padian only helped her establish her prestige and taught her secret techniques. He was extremely cold and didn't say anything. How could he be a match for Yi Qinghan when it came to words? I can submit, but you can't force me to do anything. Otherwise, I won't do it. Xiaoye said solemnly. She would rather die than submit. Yi Qinghan sneered. Once she submitted, would this little girl still have the chance to bargain? No problem. Release your divine sense and don't resist. After I place a restriction, I will naturally heal your injuries. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Xiaoye was helpless and could only compromise. She released her divine sense and allowed Yi Qinghan to invade her mind. At this time, if she resisted, only death would await her. Yi Qinghan's powerful world lord divine sense easily entered Xiaoye's sea of consciousness without any resistance. He didn't search for anything and only placed a world lord restriction before retreating. This is a resource specially used to heal injuries. I will wait for you. Yi Qinghan threw down a universe ring and turned to leave Xiaoye. When he was 10 meters away, he looked at the path he came from and sank into deep thought. What is that old thing Swan Padian doing? He could even calculate the date of my death in my previous life. After so many years, his cultivation must have improved. It's impossible that he didn't calculate Xiaoye's tribulation today. Why did he give the disciple he painstakingly raised to me? What is his goal? Yi Qinghan frowned and thought, wanting to find the real reason. After thinking for a long time, Yi Qinghan thought of the condition Swan Padian gave him in the past. Because of that matter? Is there really immortality? Is there really immortality? Although Tong Tong is the incarnation of the heavy grudge death child, he isn't truly immortal. Once an expert reaches the World Lord realm and his soul is instantly destroyed, he will still die. Unless he transforms into the heavy grudge death child again, but that would be equivalent to death. Yi Qinghan hugged his chest and leaned against the stone wall. He couldn't guess what Swan Padian was trying to do. Time passed bit by bit. It was pitch black outside. There wasn't any light. The sun must have set. The cave was even darker. Yi Qinghan took out a night pearl and illuminated a dozen meters. Shashasha. Light sliding sounds came from the mountain. The entire mountain was shaking. It was as if a reptile was approaching. The gloomy pressure made one's hair stand on end. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He looked into the depths, but the entire mountain was shaking. He couldn't see where the creature was coming from. At this moment, Xiaoye had only recovered half of her cultivation. Her spiritual dimension was repaired, but she still couldn't use much of her battle strength. What is approaching? Xiaoye opened her eyes and asked curiously. Don't talk. Yi Qinghan lowered his voice. He closed his eyes and extended his divine sense into the tunnel. This was the turning point of the 3 tunnels. If they ran into the mouth of a large creature, even the feather spirit cloak wouldn't be able to protect them. The mountain rock was so hard. If such a large cave could be drilled out, and there was more than one, the creature's teeth would definitely be able to destroy pseudo-world treasure defensive divine armor. The feather spirit cloak could withstand it for a while, but his body couldn't. His divine sense spread out. Suddenly, he sensed that one of the tunnels had been completely blocked. The powerful pressure and gloomy poison made him shudder. Gulp. That Yi Qinghan seemed to have never seen such a creature before, but he was shocked. He pulled Xiaoye and rushed back the way they came. The creature was swimming very quickly. It covered a dozen miles in a few breaths' time. It was already turning around and rushing toward the tunnel they were in. What is chasing us? Xiaoye asked anxiously. She didn't have any battle strength left. She could only rely on Yi Qinghan. We ran into its nest. It is a reptile creature. I have never seen it before. It is very big. It can swallow a few hundred people in one bite. Yi Qinghan carried Xiaoye and ran as fast as he could. He wanted to leave the cave as soon as possible. That the creature behind them was moving faster and faster. The poisonous gas rushed toward the end of the tunnel. It was nauseating. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan carried Xiaoye and rushed to the end of the tunnel. He flipped over and appeared at the crack. He carried Xiaoye and rushed out of the crack. But when he got out, he found that Xiaoye had already fainted. Her face was purple as if she had been poisoned. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He put his finger on her neck and felt that her life force had almost been destroyed. The poison in her body was very strong. It could even seal the life force of a peak paramount god. What the hell is this? How can the poison be so strong? Yi Qinghan looked at the crack and quickly retreated. He didn't want to get tangled up with it. Chapter 13-15. Xiaoye was poisoned and injured. She couldn't protect herself. Yi Qinghan didn't want to be entangled with this creature. Therefore, before it appeared, he took Xiaoye and fled far away. He spread his wings and fused with the little beast. He spread his wings and flew with the wind, covering a distance of 90,000 miles. Screech! Yi Qinghan swooped down from the desolate mountain range. After escaping for 10,000 miles, he swooped down to a beautiful valley. There were clear lakes, tall mountains, waterfalls, and small streams. It was a good place to recuperate. Yi Qinghan brought Xiaoye to the bottom of the waterfall. He sat cross-legged on the ground and pressed his palms on Xiaoye's back. He used his powerful snow elemental supreme god power to expel the poison from her body. Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan's blood boiled and his dragon blood boiled. Yi Qinghan's eyes were tightly shut. He had already pushed his divine sense and divine power to the peak, but this damned poison gas was like a sticky candy that wrapped around every inch of Xiaoye's skin and flesh. His snow divine power couldn't do anything to it at all. The two of them were sweating profusely. They were fighting with death, fighting for survival. However, the poison didn't weaken. Instead, it was erupting crazily. Damn it, I can't subdue you. Yi Qinghan was furious. He released his divine senses. The Realm Lord's divine senses scanned the myriad of worlds. He wanted to see where this place belonged. However, he couldn't find the boundary. He guessed that the other Realm Lords couldn't sense this place either. Therefore, he used the power of desolation. Once the power of desolation entered her body, it exploded and destroyed the poison. It forced the poison out of her internal organs. A large amount of poison was eliminated. A foul smell filled Xiaoya's body. Her originally white skin turned black. The filth was unbearable. The power of desolation changed the impurities in her body. It even changed some of the impurities in her body. Perhaps Xiaoya had profited from this disaster. Otherwise, when she was awake, she wouldn't have let Yi Qinghan bang her. Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing that her body was covered in poison, he tore her clothes and threw her naked body into the pool. Gurgle. Xiaoya was awakened by the cold water in the pool. She swallowed a mouthful of water and spat it out. She rushed out of the pool and cursed, "You bastard, you bullied me again. I'm going to tell my master to beat you to death, you bastard." Yi Qinghan stared at her perfect body and laughed evilly. Only then did Xiaoya react. She screamed and immediately retreated to the bottom of the lake. However, what could the clear lake water hide? Her body was still in full view. Perhaps it would be more charming if she was half covered. "Shoo!" Yi Qinghan gestured with his hand and said innocently, "You were poisoned. I risked my life to save you. There's too much poison on your body. If you don't wash it off in time, the poison will attack your heart again. I had no choice but to strip you naked. If you didn't run out of the water yourself, I wouldn't have seen it." Xiaoya looked up into the sky and sighed in despair. Her innocence had been completely destroyed by this despicable master of hers. However, it was at this point that a snake as thick as an arm emerged from the waterfall, scaring Xiaoya so much that she jumped 3 meters into the air and landed on Yi Qinghan's body. She screamed and screamed, goosebumps rising all over her skin. In this life, she feared nothing but venomous snakes. As soon as she saw one, she felt weak and powerless. She even forgot that she was a powerful paramount god. Yi Qinghan wrapped his arms around his waist and flicked his finger, sending a stream of energy into the snake's head. Then he waved his hand and sent it flying out of the pool. "You're a peak paramount god. Do you really have to go to such lengths over a snake?" he said. "I'm most afraid of snakes. They're so soft. Just looking at them makes me sick. It's all that old bastard's fault. He used to scare me every day when I was little. Now I'm suffering from the after effects. How long are you going to stay in my arms?" "As long as you want. I don't have a problem with that. It's quite comfortable," Yi Qinghan said in a perverted manner. "Shameless." Whoosh. Xiaoya quickly jumped out of his arms, then pulled out a set of clothing from her ring of cosmos and put it on. She was wearing the same cold, black clothing that made her look like an assassin. "Tiske," Yi Qinghan said, shaking his head. "Such clothing isn't suitable for a pretty girl like you. It's none of your business." Xiaoya was still angry, so she ignored Yi Qinghan and sat down cross-legged to heal herself. Yi Qinghan smiled wryly and shook his head. He looked around at the mountain range, which seemed to stretch as far as the eye could see. It was deathly quiet, and there seemed to be very few living creatures. However, they were all very powerful. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Perhaps he had never been here in his previous life. "Where are we?" "I don't know." "How do we get back?" "I don't know." "Then aren't we going to spend the rest of our lives together here?" "In your dreams. Don't bother me." Yi Qinghan shrugged. They couldn't even reach the Realm Lord's consciousness, so if they wanted to fly back with just the two of them, it would probably take forever. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The stream flowed downwards. The sky was dark, and the stars were hidden. There were no special signs, and they couldn't even differentiate between north, south, east, and west. Fortunately, Marshal Yun was tricked by me. It will probably take him a few decades to recover. It should be enough time for me to go back. Yi Qinghan leaned against a rock beside the stream. The night wind blew his black hair, and his clothes fluttered. He was very bored, so he sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Time flew by, and the sun was overhead. After a while, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. He saw that Xiaoya's complexion was slightly better, but it would take at least 10 years for her to completely recover. "Wake up, let's look for a way out while recovering," Yi Qinghan said softly. "Where is this place?" Xiaoya stood up and looked around in confusion. She suspected that she had left Snow Country and the Divine World. "How would I know? I've never been to this place before." "Aren't you good at divination? Can you tell where this is?" Yi Qinghan mocked. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't run in, I would have already returned to the headquarters." Xiaoya reprimanded angrily. Yi Qinghan grinned coldly. He stared at Xiaoya and said hoarsely, "It seems that your master didn't teach you how to serve your master." Xiaoya's mouth twitched. She was living under someone else's roof, so she could only compromise. Yi Qinghan sighed. He didn't feel the slightest sense of familiarity in this vast world. Perhaps there was another place here, but as time passed and the world changed, he couldn't tell where this place was. The 9 worlds heaven. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He recalled how the 9 worlds heaven looked like in the past. Other than the places occupied by humans, most of the places were dead. There weren't many resources or spiritual energy, so it wasn't worth it for humans to invade. This seemed to be one of those places. Moreover, the creatures here were either covered in poisonous gas or were vicious and overbearing. There wasn't anything on them that was worth using. "Let's walk in the direction of the sun." Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment. He grabbed Xiaoya with his big hand and used the Realm Lord's consciousness. In an instant, they teleported thousands of miles. Their speed was even more terrifying than Xiaoya's peak Realm Lord. Xiaoya looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. She asked in disbelief, "You're the soul of a Realm Lord?" Chapter 13:16. "You're the soul of a Sector Lord?" Xiaoya was innocent, but that didn't mean she was stupid. To be able to move so far in one go, far beyond her divine sense. This divine sense was even more terrifying than a fake Sector Lord. What else could it be but a Sector Lord? "That's right," Yi Qinghan replied indifferently as he teleported with her. "You're the incarnation of a supreme Sector Lord?" Xiaoya asked in shock. "That's right," Yi Qinghan replied calmly. "Which Sector Lord are you? You actually have the time to play around." Xiaoya's interest was piqued. Submitting to a weakling or submitting to a supreme existence were two different things. "Take a guess." Shwa shwa shwa. The two teleported as their divine power swept across the land and retracted into their spiritual dimension. After 3 months of teleportation, they were still on their way. However, the sacred city was turned upside down. The marshal of the left was missing, Marshal Yun was in seclusion, and so was the emperor. Without a leader, the princes rose up one after another, wanting to fight for power. The left marshal wasn't here, but the people didn't leave. Many of them were Yi Qinghan's trusted aides. Most of them came from the primal chaos world and were young elites with powerful cultivation. With the support of large amounts of resources, they could quickly reach the supreme god realm. Thus, the left martial residence was still the most important step in the fight for the throne. The 4th and 6th princes had entered the climax of the fight for the throne. Divine Sect and Wang family had also started fighting. At the crucial moment, the left martial residence remained silent and didn't help either side. They all said that they would wait for the left marshal's return before making a decision. The most anxious one was Xue Fei. The imperial edict was still in Yi Qinghan's hands, but he had disappeared at the crucial moment. The 9th prince's relatives had been killed, so he could only rely on Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Xue Wuhan also had thoughts and found Zhu Wuxin, hoping that he could help him fight for the throne. Zhu Wuxinshan was silent for a while. He looked at Consort Yu and said in a low voice, "I need to think about this matter. 18th Prince only has the Snow Scar army, which is only about 10,000 people. They are still far away in the frontier and can't play any role in the fight for the throne. Even if I am willing to help you, it won't be of much help. Now we can only see what the left marshal's mansion wants to do. I suggest you don't act recklessly, or you will be killed." Yu Fei smiled bitterly. Mr. Zhuo won't help us. Traceless can only rely on you now. Mr. Zhuo is not an ungrateful person. He has stated that he doesn't support you, but he is protecting you. You don't have any relatives, so you don't have strong support. He can only rely on himself to win over and nurture his own forces. This way, he won't be opposed by the other princes. I don't believe he will support the other princes until the very end, Zhu Wuxin said. The wisdom of a military saint was definitely not ordinary. Yi Qinghan did not tell Zhu Wuxin any plan because he did not believe it and did not want to take the risk, but he had guessed most of it. Yu Fei's eyes brightened. Hearing Zhu Wuxin's words, her heart was full of anticipation and nervousness. Yu Fei left the marshal's residence and followed his plan. She did not fight in the palace, as if she had given up on fighting for the throne. Shui Wuhan also accompanied Yu Fei with peace of mind. He did nothing but wait quietly. The sixth prince, accompanied by Wang Longtao, acted swiftly and decisively. He began to fight back against the fourth prince's forces. The two forces engaged in intense assassinations. The Lord of Hell disappeared, heaven took the lead. The people of Yantian Pavilion also began to become active. Many officials died tragically in their homes. They died with a smile on their faces, which was horrifying. In the marshal's residence, Gu Qingyu returned from the military department and took charge of the residence. With Nangong Yunlan as his assistant, he secretly developed his forces and took advantage of the situation. A large number of empty official positions appeared. Everyone wanted to fight for them. The marshal's residence had strong connections and support, so they occupied more than half of the official positions. The more the two powerful princes fought, the fewer their forces were. Their trusted forces were mostly taken by the other side, while their replacements were taken by the marshal's residence. However, the sixth prince was not worried. The marshal's residence's forces were his own strength. The marshal was the sixth prince's cousin-in-law. The fourth prince was anxious. Yi Qinghan and Divine Sect were fighting again. He could not count on the marshal's residence. He could only forcefully destroy the sixth prince's forces. Only then would the marshal's residence lean towards him. While the marshal is not here, fifth uncle is in seclusion. Counterattack and uproot the sixth prince's forces. Even if both sides suffer losses, if we can get rid of the sixth prince, think of a way to get rid of him once and for all. The fourth prince looked at his guest and said coldly, "We can find someone to disguise as Zuofeng and appear somewhere. The sixth prince might go and greet him. We can find a chance to kill him and then shift the blame to Zuofeng. The marshal's residence's forces will definitely collapse and the throne will definitely be your highness's." An old man suggested in a low voice. Killing two birds with one stone. Although the plan was not new, it was vicious enough. The fourth prince's eyes flashed and he nodded in agreement. He said coldly, "I'll leave this matter to you. If you do it well, you'll be heavily rewarded." The sixth prince's side was also discussing how to defeat the fourth prince. Right now, only the two of them could contend against the fourth prince. They both had powerful relatives and enough officials to support them. Once they defeated the fourth prince, they would succeed. The Saint City was unstable and unstable. At this time, there were no neutral parties. At this crucial moment, whoever did not take action would definitely be dealt with in the future. As for the marshal's residence, since the marshal wasn't here, they had no choice but to remain neutral. 3 days later, a shocking news came from the Saint City. The marshal's residence appeared in the Wind Sea region and was heavily injured. A rumor full of flaws was flying around. Even the marshal's residence was surprised. Yi Qinghan disappeared with the Lord of Hell. Facing the Lord of Hell, it was completely possible for him to be heavily injured. The sixth prince immediately decided to go to the Wind Sea region. This was the best time to show goodwill, but Wang Longtao firmly opposed. If they left the Saint City at this time, wouldn't they be giving others a chance? Now that the left marshal is seriously injured, if I save him, he will definitely thank me. The left marshal's mansion will also have an owner. When the time comes, the left marshal's mansion will move and give the holy city to fourth brother. So what? I can still make a comeback. Shui Xian was incomparably excited. He was determined to not give others a chance to refuse. Right at this moment, within the fourth prince's estate, the fourth prince led a group of experts out of the holy city. It seemed as though they were also going to search for Yi Qinghan. This made Xue Xian even more certain of his decision. He only took Wang Longtao and his 3 overgod guards with him as he left the holy city. In the marshal's residence, Gu Qingyu and the others secretly frowned. They were somewhat suspicious of the authenticity of this news. If it was true, Yi Qinghan would have contacted them. Instead, they would have discovered his whereabouts. The divine bird wretchedly stretched and rolled his eyes. A bunch of idiots. Do I look like I'm dispirited? If I look so energetic, it can only mean that he's living well. How could he be injured? Only then did everyone realize that the sixth prince had been tricked. At this time, Wang Yuqing played a key role in informing the Wang family. Wang Longtao was also by the sixth prince's side. How could they let anything happen to them? Immediately, they sent a large number of experts to the Wind Sea region. Chapter 13-17. At this moment, Yi Qinghan and Xiaoye were speeding through this barren area. When they were tired, they would rest and chat along the way, so they didn't feel bored. However, they didn't know that the holy city had undergone earth-shattering changes. Holy City, within the imperial palace. The emperor's injuries were worsening and his life force was fading. He could no longer suppress it and could only come out of seclusion. At this moment, the princes and ministers who were playing tricks in the holy city had no choice but to stop their plans. However, the fourth prince's plan to assassinate the sixth prince and frame Yi Qinghan didn't stop. The emperor's face was deathly pale as if he didn't have any life force left. He sat in the imperial court and discovered that Yi Qinghan and Marshal Yun, the 2 assistant ministers, weren't present. Only the left marshal residence's Gu Qingyu had taken their place. He couldn't help but ask, "Where's Mr. Left Marshal and Marshal Yun?" The fourth prince had only circled around the outer city before returning. His expression changed slightly. He was afraid that the left marshal residence would complain. After all, this matter involved the divine sect. However, how could the left marshal residence not take advantage of this situation? Gu Qingyu stepped forward and bowed. "Your Majesty, this general is the left marshal residence's general." On the day of the left marshal's wedding, he was ambushed by the divine sect and Hell's assassins. Right now, his whereabouts are unknown. Marshal Yun was also heavily injured in the attack and is currently recuperating. The emperor was furious. He was hoping that Yi Qinghan would contribute some more rare treasures. However, he didn't expect that he would be assassinated. Moreover, it was on his wedding day. Just how daring were the divine sect and Hell? Just how little did they care about the divine nation? Bang! The emperor smashed a corner of the dragon throne and said hoarsely, "Could it be that they're bullying me because I'm about to die and can't suppress them? They even dared to kill the assistant minister that I personally appointed. They even dared to kill my own brother. Is there any justice in this world? Men, have the divine sect and Hell's Lord come and give me an explanation. Otherwise, I'll wipe them out while I still have some time." The emperor shouted angrily. Just as a powerful guard was about to leave, a low voice came from outside the palace. "There's no need for your majesty to summon me. I've come uninvited." The divine lord appeared outside the palace alone. He flashed and entered, appearing in front of the crowd. The divine lord was not angry, and his power was not weaker than the emperor's. He was neither servile nor overbearing. He glanced at the crowd, and no one dared to look him in the eyes. Finally, he fixed his eyes on the emperor and said coldly, "Your Majesty, you want an explanation from me, and I also want an explanation from your Majesty. As long as you can convince me, I will convince your Majesty." The emperor looked at the arrogant divine master's disdainful attitude and was a little angry. He asked in a hoarse voice, "What do you want from me?" Back then, if it weren't for the fact that everyone in divine sect had followed ancestor Wushang into battle, how could I have allowed you to strut around and blaspheme the emperor's prestige? Your Majesty, there's no need to be angry. Let me ask you, back then when Lord Ling Yen was roaming the world, did he promise that as long as divine sect behaved, the Snow World army would not appear in our divine sect's territory? Furthermore, Back then when you ascended the throne, did you repeat this promise? The divine master coldly questioned. The emperor's expression froze as he nodded and said, "Yes. I acknowledge this promise." However, Marshal Yun led 1,000,000 Snow World Army elites into our divine sect's territory and captured several hundred of our Snow God sect's elites. He said that he wanted to repeat the Tong family's case and put the false accusation on my head. He even wanted to accuse me of treason. Your Majesty, do you have an explanation for this? The emperor's face turned red, as if he was having a terminal lucidity. At this moment, he was actually speechless. He did not know why Marshal Yun did this. I'll say one more thing. Zhuofeng allowed his spirit pet to enter our divine sect's territory and steal our sect's snow lotus and a supreme treasure. Zhuofeng, as an assistant minister, did not return the treasure. Instead, he joined forces with Marshal Yun to attack our divine sect's territory and crippled our head disciples' cultivation. I suspect that they planned this together. I believe that the imperial family would not do such a despicable thing. It was just their private actions. I wanted to take back the snow lotus and supreme treasure to scare Zhuofeng. I just wanted to capture him alive and take back the treasure. Is that wrong? But, right now, Zhuofeng is missing. Our sect's supreme treasure has been taken away by him. His spirit pet is still free and unfettered in the marshal's residence. Now you ask me for an explanation. How am I going to explain this to our ancestors? In the future, how are you going to meet the spirits of our divine sect who died for Snow Empire? The Divine Lord took control of the situation and angrily asked, "Do you want me to ask the Supreme Realm Lord to come out of seclusion and ask Lord Ling Yan to come back and uphold justice?" The hall was silent. No one dared to argue with the Divine Lord. The Emperor also could not answer. Go and summon Marshal Yun's spirit pet. I want to know the truth. The Emperor powerlessly fell on the dragon throne and said dispiritedly, "The divine sect wasn't an ordinary power." In the past, the divine sect had suffered heavy casualties in order to conquer the great wasteland domain. Many elders and grand elders had died because of this. Those who survived didn't live for long before they turned into Tao and died. In order to appease the divine sect, the Supreme Realm Lord had bestowed the Snow Lotus as a form of repayment. Therefore, the Emperor absolutely wouldn't dare to attack the divine sect for no reason. A guard beside the Emperor quickly left the hall and went straight to the marshal's residence. At this moment, the divine bird was proudly teaching Tong Tong and Little Tong how to behave. However, its style was extremely wretched and vulgar. It did not say a word of seriousness. It instilled its own ideas into the two inexperienced children's minds. Remember one sentence. I would rather betray the world than let the world take advantage of me. If we can't beat them, we can run. There is no need to fight with them. Face is for the weak. The strong only know how to slap others' face. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Who knows if I will ride on the Divine Lord's head and pee 30 years later? The divine bird said wretchedly. Tong Tong nodded thoughtfully. It was very reasonable. Little Tong did not know anything. The divine bird's outlook on life was somewhat distorted. At this moment, the guards in the palace entered the marshal's residence to summon the divine bird for questioning. The divine bird was stunned. Knowing that the divine lord was in the palace, it suddenly trembled. Can I not go? Go back and tell His Majesty that this divine bird was frightened and is now in a coma. Take this spiritual god stone. I will find you a good treasure in a few *************. The divine bird said with a smile. The middle-aged guard's forehead was covered in sweat. A black line appeared between his eyebrows. He said in a deep voice, "No. His Majesty has ordered that you must go to the palace and wait for questioning." The divine bird was helpless. It said to Tong Tong, "Follow me into the palace and protect me. Do not let the villain hurt me. Remember, once someone attacks, we must not fight. Escape is more important." The guard wiped the sweat off his forehead and stared deeply at the divine bird. He did not know what kind of trouble this thing would cause if it entered the palace. The divine bird took Tong Tong and followed the guard into the palace. It looked around wretchedly as if it was looking for an escape route. Thank you for your subscription support. Thank you for your great support. Chapter 13:18. The hall was completely silent. Even breathing had stopped. They could only wait for the divine bird to come out and explain the situation. The divine lord clenched his fists. He wanted to stew the divine bird. At this moment, the divine bird perched on Tong Tong's shoulder and followed the guard in. Move aside. Don't let that bastard sneak attack you. The divine bird whispered to Tong Tong. The bastard it mentioned was naturally the divine lord. Although its voice was soft, everyone in the hall heard it clearly. The divine lord's face turned green with anger. He glared at the divine bird. Tong Tong knew she was no match for the divine lord. She subconsciously ran to Gu Qingyu's side. The emperor looked at the perverted divine bird and Tong Tong and frowned. He was somewhat displeased. Your Majesty is in good health. There seems to be a divine glow between your brows. You must have a good fortune today. Perhaps you can break the shackles and live forever. The divine bird flew to the emperor and knelt down. It was very perverted. The emperor's old face was stunned. He loved to hear such words. No one wanted to die, let alone him. He was the ruler of the world. Oh, you know fortune-telling? Is that true? The emperor quickly asked. Of course. This divine bird is known as the divine bird. I know a thing or two about everything, especially physiognomy. Recently, the stars have rotated and strange phenomena have appeared. Looking at the divine light between your Majesty's eyebrows, I can't be wrong. Your Majesty must have had an opportunity recently. The divine bird replied proudly. The emperor was overjoyed. Could it be that the divine bird was right? There was still a chance? The divine lord flew into a rage. He coldly glanced at the divine bird and said sternly, Your Majesty, shouldn't you be investigating the case now? The emperor was delighted and in a much better mood. He naturally sided with the divine bird. However, in order to appease the divine lord, he had to symbolically ask, Divine bird, the sect leader of the divine sect just accused you of stealing 2 treasures. Is that true? How can it be stealing? I only went to take back something that didn't belong to the divine sect. Also, Your Majesty, you must understand my sincerity. I took the supreme snow lotus to heal you. However, before my master returned to the sacred city, he was harmed by those bastards from the divine sect. I don't know whether he is alive or dead. We are loyal and devoted to Your Majesty. You must uphold justice for us. The divine bird said aggrievedly. Kakaka. The divine master almost couldn't control himself. No matter how good his temper was, he couldn't lose his temper in front of a divine bird. The emperor did not understand the divine bird, but seeing how aggrieved and serious the divine bird looked, coupled with the fact that Yi Qinghan had given away so many rare treasures, he had every reason to believe the divine bird's words. Therefore, he believed it without a doubt. What is the other treasure? The emperor asked curiously. When the divine bird heard this, it immediately said righteously, Speaking of the other thing, if Your Majesty knew about it, you would definitely be angry. It's better not to talk about it. Take care of yourself. It's all right. Today, I must make things clear. I have never wronged anyone in my life, and I don't want to lose my reputation at the last moment. The emperor said in a deep voice. Plop. The divine bird directly knelt down, spread its wings on the ground, and wailed in tears, Your Majesty, you have to seek justice for us. The last treasure is actually a bone from the child behind me. In order to obtain it, the divine sect attacked the Tong family at night, slaughtered the entire family, broke one of Tong Tong's ribs, and hung his 7-year-old body in a pile of filthy blood and bones. The divine sect is simply inhumane. They even framed the Tong family as traitors and deceived Your Majesty. Such a sect doesn't care about Your Majesty at all. The emperor frowned and asked coldly, Is this true? Who can prove it? Tong Tong can prove it, because he was the person involved. When he died a tragic death, his resentment was too strong and he turned into a dead spirit. In the end, he was converted by my lord, Marshal Zhua. He used the firmament to turn into a golden body and my lord's flesh and blood to be reborn. If you don't believe me, you can ask that bastard if the second treasure is a bone. If it wasn't for that bone, Why would the divine sect cross the continent to slaughter the Tong family and even accuse them of traitors? Even if they were traitors, they could have reported it to His Majesty and let His Majesty deal with it personally. However, they didn't. They only accused them of a crime after the massacre. If it wasn't for the bone, then what else could it be? The divine bird took the initiative and attacked aggressively, forcing the divine master to be speechless. You're full of nonsense. What's the use of a bone? It's not the bone of a supreme being. The second treasure that my sect lost is the Snow God's Codex. The divine master coldly argued. Sigh, don't accuse me wrongly. What bullshit Snow God's Codex? I've never seen it before. The divine bird immediately got up and glared at the divine master. You know very well whether you've seen it or not. You're just a feathered animal. Don't think that you're human just because you can speak human language without transforming. Let me tell you, if you don't hand over the Snow God's Codex and the Snow God's Codex today, I'll crush all the bones in your body. The divine master coldly threatened. I'm so scared. You dare to threaten the kind and loyal divine bird in front of His Majesty? What are your intentions? Could it be that you're the real traitor? Do you want His Majesty to fall so that you can support the fourth prince and take control of the divine nation? The divine bird righteously questioned. This accusation was so strong that even the ministers in the hall stood on the divine bird's side. Gu Qingyu and Tong Tong subconsciously protected the divine bird, standing between it and the divine master. At this moment, the emperor gestured with his hand. Divine bird, come to my side. As long as you're telling the truth, no one can do anything to you. Attacking you is the same as attacking me. When the divine master saw the emperor protecting the divine bird, he was so angry that his whole body trembled. The icy flames in his eyes solidified as he stared at the divine bird. The divine bird turned its butt and arrogantly looked back at the divine master. It was extremely wretched. Then, it jumped up and ran to the emperor's shoulder. The emperor was old and weathered. His face was full of wrinkles, and the aura of death pervaded the air. His vitality was greatly depleted. If it wasn't for his last will, he would have died long ago. Even the ultimate powerhouses would die. In the face of reincarnation, they were still powerless. No one could be immortal, and no one could live forever. Even the realm master could only stay in seclusion for so long due to his injuries, let alone him. As soon as the divine bird touched the emperor, it felt that the blood in his body had lost its vitality. It knew that there was a problem with his life force. Once there was a problem with the life force of an ultimate powerhouse, there was nothing that could replace it. It was almost impossible to repair it. Your Majesty, you've overworked yourself for the divine nation, and your life force is somewhat damaged. You mustn't be angry and hurt your vitality. However, your lucky star is coming. Your Majesty still has a chance to turn things around. I guess your lucky star must be my master. The divine bird lied. Yes. The emperor naturally understood his injuries. He didn't expect a parrot to be so smart. It could sense the problem just by touching him, and it could even say that there was a chance to turn things around. Sect Master Shui, you said that the divine bird stole the divine sect's snow god cannon. Do you have evidence? The emperor asked in a deep voice. The divine master frowned. Seeing that the emperor was obviously siding with the divine bird, he was a little angry. He said coldly, the entire divine sect is a witness. It stole the divine sect's treasure. Zuofeng and Marshal Shui led the snow army into the territory to take it away. Your Majesty still asks me for evidence. Don't you think it's ridiculous? I didn't steal it. I'm just framing you. This divine bird forgives you. However, your Majesty is mentally exhausted and needs to rest. Not only are you inconsiderate, you're also aggressive. You obviously want your Majesty to die sooner. You're a despicable traitor. This divine bird will never forgive you. The divine bird scolded righteously. Chapter 13:19. The divine bird spoke in a righteous manner, making it impossible for anyone to defend themselves. The divine lord's breathing became hurried, and he almost couldn't hold it in any longer. This old monster had lived for countless years, so what had he not seen before? What had he not experienced before? Usually, his emotions wouldn't fluctuate too much, but today, his veins were bulging and he couldn't control himself. Huff, huff, huff. The entire hall could hear the Divine Master's rapid breathing. Many people's mouths twitched. They didn't expect the Divine Master to be pushed to such a state by a bird. Every word was extremely vicious. Seeing the Divine Master speechless, the Divine Bird raised his head and said, "Not only will I not forgive you, but the whole world will not forgive a despicable traitor. Since it's your first offense, His Majesty is merciful. As long as you apologize, His Majesty won't lower himself to your level." The Divine Master clenched his fists and glared at the Divine Bird and the Emperor. He shouted hoarsely, "Nonsense! I've always served the Snow Nation and the realm of the gods. How could I be a traitor? Bastard, if you dare to speak nonsense again, I'll kill you immediately. Look, this bastard wants to kill me in front of His Majesty. Do you think you can scare His Majesty by killing me? Do you think you can shut the mouths of the whole world just because you're powerful? Your Snow God sect slaughtered the Tong family first, then deceived His Majesty, and now you're blaspheming His Majesty. You'll be punished by the heavens, bastard." The Divine Bird said seriously. "You fucking curse me again." The Divine Lord roared. "Bastard, bastard." The Divine Bird cursed. "Damn it, this is the first time I've seen such a despicable person begging me to curse. How despicable can he be?" Cough, cough, cough. The Divine Master's face was pale. He was already injured, and now he was so angry that his chi and blood became unstable. He coughed up blood. The Emperor had long been displeased with the Divine Sect's arrogance and despotism. Seeing that the Divine Bird had angered the Divine Master, he was secretly delighted. Furthermore, the Divine Bird had said that there were still opportunities waiting for him. His face turned red and a faint smile appeared on his face. The Divine Master staggered and took a step back. His eyes were burning with anger. He said hoarsely, "Your Majesty, are you going to let a feathered beast run wild in the palace? You bitch, what do you want? You were the one who asked me to scold you. I scolded you and you got angry. I didn't scold you and I didn't give you any face. You got angry. What the hell do you want? Say it. Don't hold it in. I won't change anyway. This Divine Bird is used to being arrogant. I like to do things my own way." The Divine Bird said disdainfully. Poof! The Divine Lord couldn't catch his breath. He spat out a mouthful of blood and took a deep breath. His face was extremely pale. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Everyone looked at the Divine Master, who was panting heavily, and found him rather pitiful. Tong Tong grinned, as if verbally taking advantage of this bastard was more satisfying than beating him to death. It was better to infuriate someone than to kill them. Let them suffer a fate worse than death. All right. Stop arguing. I'm here today to hear the case, not to listen to you argue. The Emperor's lips curled into a smile as he spoke faintly. What's there to judge? This feathered beast stole the Divine Sect's heirloom treasure. Your Majesty, you have to give the Divine Sect an explanation. Don't disappoint the ancestors of the Divine Sect. The Divine Lord said angrily. Divine Bird, what do you say? The Emperor turned to look at the Divine Bird, who was lying lazily with his legs in the air, and couldn't help but ask with a smile. I didn't steal it. This Divine Bird is a wise Almighty. How could I do something as petty as stealing? The Divine Bird rolled his eyes and replied. Everyone in the hall looked at the Divine Bird's expression, and their mouths twitched. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. It was difficult for them to hold it in. Then how do you explain the Supreme Snow Lotus? Did it fly into your hands of its own accord? The Divine Lord asked angrily. The Divine Bird rolled his eyes and said fearlessly, I picked it up and left it there. It's free, so why wouldn't I take it? The Divine Lord was furious. His veins were bulging, and the divine power in his body was going out of control. The two strongest guards beside the Emperor stepped forward indifferently and drew their swords. All right. I admit that I stole it, okay? Don't be angry. You're already so old, but why is your state of mind so bad? You're so angry that you're sick. Others will say that I don't respect my elders. The divine bird sighed and tried to persuade him seriously. Think about it this way. This supreme snow lotus is the only divine medicine that can save His Majesty now. You won't leave him to die, right? The divine lord rolled his eyes. He was extremely angry. The divine power in his body was surging, and he was in danger of going berserk at any time. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. If he didn't vent it out, there might be repercussions. The divine bird saw the divine lord's expression and sat up in an exaggerated manner. He stood up with his two little claws and moved back. He asked in disbelief, "Do you want to see His Majesty die, but you're not willing to give him an external object to save his life? You're so vicious." The divine lord spat out another mouthful of blood. He was about to lose control. At this moment, the fourth prince stood up and said coldly, "When did the divine lord say that he's not willing to use the supreme snow lotus to save father?" I believe that it wouldn't dare to speak nonsense about the imperial edict. Summon the divine bird, and it will naturally know the contents of the imperial edict. What a joke! How can we let a feathered animal make the decision for a national matter? The divine master angrily rebuked. The one making the decision is not the divine bird, but His Majesty. Sir Divine Master, please speak more politely. The divine bird is only here to announce the edict, Imperial Concubine Shui solemnly said. This old man agrees with Imperial Concubine Shui's proposal. I wonder what General Gu of Marshals was Mansion thinks? Marshal Shui asked in a deep voice. For a moment, Gu Qingyu forgot that the divine bird was still in the holy city. He quickly said, "Marshal Shui, this general agrees with asking the divine bird's opinion. It should know what Marshal Shui's thoughts are." The divine master's expression slightly changed. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. However, he could only act in secret. He didn't dare to kill a minister in public. Marshal Shui nodded. The guards quickly rushed to Marshal Shui's mansion. The divine bird sat on the commander's seat with an aloof appearance. It looked down at the guards and said in a dignified manner, "Who is it? What business do you have with this seat?" The guards in the palace knew how terrifying the divine bird's sharp tongue was. They didn't bicker with it and told it the purpose of their visit. The divine bird's eyes flashed. It didn't expect that the matter of His Majesty's ascension to the throne would be decided by itself. "Jjjjjjja. Tong Tong, come with me to the palace to show off." The divine bird suddenly became spirited. Its laziness disappeared and it directly flew up from the chair. This time, all the hidden experts of Marshal Shui's mansion came out. This was an important matter of assisting His Majesty's ascension to the throne. Something was bound to happen in the palace. They didn't want the divine bird to be in danger. Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng and the others all came out. The army appeared not far from the holy city. The divine bird appeared in a dazzling manner accompanied by everyone. It looked at the divine master who looked like he wanted to eat it. It smiled and said, "Yo, who is this? Why is your face green?" "Humph." The divine master coldly snorted. He decided to kill the Marshal Shui's mansion tonight. He would capture the divine bird and torture it to death. Marshal Shui shook his head. It wasn't a good thing to anger the divine master at this time. It would only make him fight to the death. Chapter 1321. Inside the hall, everyone looked at the divine bird with eager eyes. Imperial Concubine Shui was the most expectant. She asked gently, "Divine bird, you are the spirit pet of Marshal Shui. You must know that he has an imperial edict." "Of course. I talked to him about everything. I know everything about him. Everything." The divine bird said wretchedly, emphasizing the word, everything. He knew that Imperial Concubine Shui was kneeling and licking his boots. Imperial Concubine Shui's face turned red, but she quickly hid it. She said sternly, "Divine bird, please tell the world about the imperial edict. It involves the orthodoxy of the world. You must not lie. Otherwise, even Mr. will not be able to protect you." The divine bird curled his lips and thought, "Little slut, why are you pretending to be pure? You even dare to threaten this divine bird." Marshal Shui was exhausted and his injuries were getting worse. He did not want to waste any more time, so he said, "Divine Bird, tell us about the Imperial Edict. Your words and actions represent Marshal Zhua. Do not tarnish his reputation." The Divine Bird stood on Tong Tong's shoulder and said proudly, "This Divine Bird's reputation is no worse than my master's. Don't make me sound so unbearable." "Fine, since you need it so much, I will tell you. In fact, the Imperial Edict was written when His Majesty first came out of seclusion and announced my master to enter the inner palace. His Majesty's personal bodyguard can testify that the Crown Prince is the 9th Prince." "Impossible. His Majesty has already grounded the 9th Prince. How can he still make him the Crown Prince? You lowly bird, you must pay for your nonsense." The 4th Prince and the 7th Prince roared at the same time. "This Divine Bird swears on my honor that if I lie, I will be struck by lightning." The Divine Bird said solemnly. The 9th Prince was stunned. He did not expect that Yi Qinghan would protect him in the end. He had even found someone to assassinate him. He was surprised and happy and did not know what to do. He looked at Imperial Concubine Shui and found that she already knew. He knew that Imperial Concubine Shui was working hard. This old man does not believe it. Wait for Zhua Feng to come back and show us the Imperial Edict. Only when His Majesty wakes up can he make another Crown Prince. Otherwise, the royal family should vote together. Letting a lowly bird announce the throne of an empire, this is the biggest joke in the world. The Divine Lord interrupted the Divine Bird angrily. He wanted to stall for time. Today, he would wipe out the Zhua Marshal's mansion and kill Marshal Yun. Then, the ministers would have no leader and could only assist the 4th Prince. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. If you don't believe it, then so be it. Then you am back. The Divine Bird raised its head and said disdainfully, "Since you don't believe me, then let's not talk about the throne for now." Chapter 1322. The God Master entered the room and bowed as Marshal Zhua. "This time, we need to catch the divine sect off guard. If I don't appear, they will definitely assassinate the ministers and even attack you. When we catch them, we can accuse them of treason and wipe out the divine sect. I'll leave this to you. The Snow Border Army will cooperate with you. I need to recover. Leave the Supreme Snow Lotus with me for a while," Marshal Shui said in a deep voice. But the God Master acted as if he was going to take out the Supreme Snow Lotus. But in that split second, he grabbed Marshal Shui's neck and his soul forcefully entered Marshal Shui's mind. It was too fast and Marshal Shui wasn't prepared at all. His soul was directly destroyed and his body immediately went limp. The God Master helped Marshal Shui's body onto the bed and used God power to imprison his body as if he was alive. "And you can leave first. Tell the people outside not to disturb me. I need some peace," the God Master disguised as Marshal Shui said in a deep voice. "Yes, Marshal Shui." The guards outside could only hear the voices but didn't feel any God power ripples. The shadow in the room didn't do anything either, so they didn't suspect anything. The God Master left the room and said to the guard, "Marshal Shui needs some peace and quiet. He needs the Supreme Snow Lotus to recover. Don't disturb him." "Sir." The young guard slightly bowed. He was definitely one of the strongest of the younger generation. The God Master killed Marshal Shui and swaggered out of the mansion. There was no trace of Marshal Shui's death. The army outside Marshal Shui's mansion was still patrolling. Marshal Shui's personal guard looked inside the room. He wanted to push the door open and take a look, but he was afraid of disturbing Marshal Shui's cultivation. In the pitch-black sacred city, the Forbidden Army was under Jiang Jingtian's command. They were patrolling outside and were very vigilant. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of them. Following the weak light, they realized it was Yi Qinghan. They couldn't help but be shocked. The God Master didn't have any emotions because he didn't know that the person in front of him was Jiang Jingtian or his relationship with Yi Qinghan. He thought he was just an ordinary commander of the Forbidden Army. He quickly took out his seal and said in a deep voice, "Don't make a fuss. Wait for divine sect to act." Jiang Jingtian frowned and said coldly, "High mountains and flowing water." The Divine Lord was bewildered. He knew it was a secret signal, but he didn't know how to respond. While the Divine Lord was stunned, Jiang Jingtian was not. He took a step back and waved his hand. The army behind him immediately readied all the crossbows. Divine power surged, and sharp killing intent filled the air. Divine light soared into the sky. High mountain and flowing water. Jiang Jingtian said coldly again. The Divine Lord calmed himself down and said in a deep voice, "Does this marshal still need a secret signal? Is the commander-in-chief's order not trustworthy? This isn't a secret signal of the Imperial Army, but a secret signal between you and I. You don't even know who I am, do you?" Jiang Jingtian's eyes were already filled with doubt. He lightly stomped his foot, and energy rushed into the left marshal's residence. The strong cultivators in the residence were immediately on alert. They took out their opening realm crossbows, unleashed their divine powers, and aimed at the Divine Lord. Whoosh! The defensive enchantment outside the left marshal's residence was opened. The army moved in unison, and energy leaked out. In an instant, the place was brightly lit. A distress arrow flew into the sky and exploded. The holy city was suddenly as bright as day. Many strong cultivators flew into the sky. Zhu Wuxin personally led the city guards to charge at the left marshal's residence. I didn't expect Zhuo Feng to be so smart. He even set up a secret signal. I underestimated him. However, even if it wasn't an assassination, I could still easily kill you all. Boom! The Divine Lord's chi burst out, and his supreme godly might surged. He swept his sword across and struck the enchantment. Suddenly, the sky cracked and the earth shattered. Chi soared into the galaxy. The houses in the left marshal's residence were shaken, but the enchantment was not broken. Whoosh, whoosh. Countless crossbow bolts broke through the sky and shot toward the Divine Lord. For a moment, the outside of the left marshal's residence was like hell. The earth shook, but the enchantment remained as stable as Mount Tai. The Divine Lord destroyed all the crossbow bolts. His energy was unstable, and he took a few steps back. He looked at the enchantment of the left marshal's residence with shock in his eyes. He said to himself hoarsely, "This is the barren ancient protective sky array. It is said that the enchantment will not break if the heavens do not defeat it." At this moment, Zhu Wuxin led a group of 10,000 elites to form an array. The stars moved and the area slowly shrank. They wanted to trap the Divine Lord in the array. A military saint was not easy to deal with. Under the command of a saint, 10,000 elite soldiers would definitely be able to surround the Divine Master. In addition, there were so many experts in the left marshal's residence. Once they were trapped, the Divine Master would not be able to escape. The Divine Lord's face turned cold. He did not expect to leave the left marshal's residence alive after killing Marshal Yun. He knew that he could not stay here for long. He tore open the void and was about to leave. At this moment, at least 10,000 attacks landed where the Divine Lord was standing. Time and space collapsed, and a black hole swallowed everything. The Divine Lord then disappeared. Chapter 1324. Inside the Holy City, the two Supreme Kings could cover the sky with a wave of their hands. Their gazes were enough to change the world. Brother Cheng, the fourth prince, is the only one who is suitable to be the emperor. The seventh prince is not suitable. I hope you won't interfere with the imperial family's affairs. Jigu faced Mu Yunfeng. The two Supreme Kings stood proudly and looked down on all living things. They could suppress the world with a single glance. Not interfering in the affairs of the royal family is based on the condition that His Majesty is sober and the sacred city is stable. Master also gave me a special request, which is that when His Majesty is no longer sober and the sacred city is in chaos, I must forcefully intervene and assist a suitable prince to ascend the throne. Jigu, if you cooperate, I will give you face. If not, then we will meet in the palace. Divine light flowed around Mu Yunfeng's body. He was very handsome, like the son of the gods. He stood in front of people, but people couldn't see through him. His majestic voice was vast and mighty. It carried a destructive power that spread in all directions. Then we will meet in the palace. I will not give up on protecting the fourth prince. Jigu faintly responded to Mu Yunfeng's challenge. The two supreme kings had both strength and status. When the two entered the holy city, everyone suddenly quieted down. Even the heavenly Lord no longer interfered with the holy city's affairs. When Jigu entered the holy city, the first thing he did was to forcefully take control of the Snow Border Army and take back the commander's seal in the name of Ling Yan. Even Xueling couldn't stop him and didn't want to stop him. However, the Snow Border Army was blocked outside the city by the city guards. Yi Qinghan controlled 10 Snow Border Army units, and millions of loyal soldiers were secretly migrating towards the holy city. They could deal with the upheaval in the holy city at any time. The next morning, although there were no assistant ministers, Jigu and Mu Yunfeng appeared. They were the assistant ministers. Their words and actions represented the supreme majesty. Many ministers didn't dare to say anything even if they disagreed with the two's decision. They could only sit and watch the two fight. His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince empathizes with the common people. He is a steady and bright person. He does things flawlessly, and he is also adept at handling state affairs. These years, he has been helping His Majesty deal with state affairs and has won the hearts of the people. I, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Snow Domain Army, support him to ascend to the throne. I ask everyone to support His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince and return the sacred city to stability. Jigu looked disdainfully at the crowd and said in a low voice. The Fourth Prince empathized with the people and was a steady and bright person. Chapter 1325. Off in the distance, divine light soared into the sky, and pressure spread out in all directions, making it impossible for anyone to get close. What a powerful pressure! What a treasure! Yi Qinghan said heroically. There aren't many people here, so it won't attract any supremes. Let's go steal it. Although the adventurers here had decent cultivation bases, they were all giant gods. There were very few paramount gods, and most paramount gods enjoyed their lives at home. Who would go out and wander about? Not only would they not be able to find any opportunities, if they encountered any danger, they might even die. With so many years to live, no one was willing to take the risk. We'll split it half. You can't have it all. Xiaoye said seriously. Tisktif. Even you are mine, and you want to split the treasures? Yi Qinghan said with a raised eyebrow. Xiaoye snorted, and then she and Yi Qinghan quickly charged into the danger zone. The danger zone was surrounded by steep cliffs and rips, and if one fell in, they would be swept away by the turbulence. Even paramount gods would be in danger. Many of the weaker greater gods only dared to wander around the perimeter, while the giant gods joined forces to take the risk and enter the danger zone to obtain the supreme treasures. Treasure light soared into the sky from the depths of the danger zone, and pressure spread out. It seemed to be right in front of them, but it was separated by the heavens, and no one dared to take the risk. Some of the paramount gods did not have powerful clans, and thus could not obtain paramount god weapons. They could only take the risk to search for the primordial chaos treasures. But now they hesitated. If they died here, their clans would suffer miserable fates, and they would be swallowed up by other powerful organizations. Yi Qinghan held Xiaoye in his arms, a playful look on his face as he swaggered into the danger zone. Everyone looked at him with amusement, but it was a bit of a pity that such a beautiful girl like Xiaoye would be torn apart by the space here. However, there were some kind-hearted people who stepped forward to stop him, not for Yi Qinghan, but for Xiaoye. Fellow Taoists, up ahead is a ripping danger zone. It looks like an ordinary space, but once you fall in, it will become a spatial black hole. Even divine weapons can be torn apart. Treasures are right in front of you, but they will be quickly sucked away, and you won't necessarily be able to find them again. A young man stared straight at Xiaoyu, almost drooling. Yi Qinghan glanced at the young man and then said to Xiaoye, "Wait for me outside. I will come out after I get the treasure." Xiaoye frowned and advised, "Isn't it too dangerous? I've heard of this sort of danger zone. Quite a few overgods have died here." "Yo, you're worried about me," Yi Qinghan teased. "I'm worried that you won't die. Get in." Bang. Xiaoye lifted her leg and kicked. There was no life at all. There was only a vast expanse of fog and shattered rocks flying about. The spatial cracks swallowed everything, but there was a divine light and a faint pressure in the center of the mountain range. It seemed to be resisting the devouring of the spatial cracks. The pseudo-world artifact was indeed powerful. The spatial cracks nearby were enough to tear apart a supreme god's body, but they couldn't tear it away. Wait for me outside. I have the feather spirit robe. These spatial cracks are useless against me. Yi Qinghan placed Xiaoye in a relatively safe place and spoke forcefully. Be careful. Xiaoye reminded him from the bottom of her heart. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and rushed into the mountain range alone. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan's back and frowned. She didn't know why she was so concerned about this hoodlum. She had been taken advantage of over the past few days. If it were anyone else, they would have already suffered heavy losses and killed him. However, when it came to this hoodlum, sometimes she would act like she didn't want to be taken advantage of, but in reality, she would just scold him a little. The periphery of the mountain range was filled with spatial cracks. There was no way to stand around. In the center of the valley, there was a rectangular object. It looked a bit like a stone brick, but it emitted a thick pressure of a world artifact. However, it wasn't a world artifact. It could be considered a peak pseudo-world artifact. It looks a bit like the golden brick in the stone song, but its level is much higher. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. He stood at the top of the mountain and clenched his fists. His veins bulged as he punched the spatial crack. It collapsed and his figure disappeared into the valley. The stone brick trembled and the pressure grew even stronger. It rolled out in waves. An ordinary supreme god wouldn't be able to withstand this pressure. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a sneer. His iron hand transformed into a sky-piercing claw that took control of the stone brick. The stone brick suddenly exploded with light that soared into the sky and shattered the surrounding space. It was as though it was resisting Yi Qinghan's control. Humph! I can even control the great wasteland steel, let alone a little thing like you. Faced with the unfriendly gazes of the other overgods, he quickly healed himself and tore through the void to flee. Some of the experts who had lost their resources were very interested in this severely injured overgod, and they immediately chased after him. Yi Qinghan used a teleportation technique and rushed towards the Snow Nation's divine world. His speed was extremely fast, and with a flash of light, the two of them appeared 1,000,000 miles away. This was the result of Yi Qinghan being worried about alerting the Realm Master. Otherwise, they would have appeared at the border of the true spiritual world in an instant. 3 days later, Yi Qinghan completely disappeared, but the Snow Nation's divine world's holy city was filled with pressure and might. Mu Yunfeng and Jigu fought until the end, and he actually took out a pseudo-world weapon to suppress Jigu. He couldn't even mobilize the realm army and force Jigu to agree to make the 7th Prince Emperor. Today was the day of the coronation. The left marshal's residence didn't have a pseudo-world weapon and couldn't resist Mu Yunfeng. For the sake of safety, they could only endure. Xue Fei was helpless. Even if there was an imperial edict, there was nothing she could do. Moreover, the imperial edict wasn't in the holy city, and Yi Qinghan was nowhere to be found. The 9th prince went from hell to heaven, and then fell from heaven again. He missed the chance to become emperor and was filled with regret. Xue Wuhen was smart. When he saw the 2 elite supreme masters take action, he knew that there was nothing for him to do. He immediately went into hiding and waited for the true dragon, the son of heaven, to appear. The 7th prince was full of smiles. He looked at the people from the left marshal's residence with dense killing intent in his eyes. However, he couldn't touch the left marshal's residence before he sat firmly on the throne. After all, the left marshal's residence and the absolute marshal's residence were inextricably linked, and the Snow Nation's army was related to Zhu Wu Exin. It was obviously impossible to touch the 3 greatest powers before he ascended the throne. The 4th prince's face was gloomy. He didn't expect that the 7th prince would benefit in the end. Even Jigu couldn't change the situation. Unless Lord Ling Yan came back personally, Mu Yunfeng wouldn't dare to use the pseudo-world weapon to behave atrociously. Mu Yunfeng pressed Jiji's head with a smile and a hint of provocation. He protected the 7th prince in his dragon robe and prepared to ascend the throne. The emperor still hadn't woken up. His vitality had dissipated and he didn't have any signs of life. He could die at any time. The situation was already set. Even if the left marshal came back personally, he wouldn't be able to change the situation. Some of the ministers began to waver. However, those who were controlled by Yi Qinghan didn't dare to act recklessly. They just waited quietly for the orders from the left marshal's residence. Every dog has its day. Wait for my lord to return. Let's see how arrogant they can be. The divine bird didn't care. It didn't matter who became the emperor. After all, it wouldn't last long. It wasn't worried. Gu Qingyu and the others heard the divine bird's words and felt that it was very reasonable. There was no need to fight to the death with them at this time. There were only 2 hours left before the coronation. All the officials and military commanders had arrived. Muyun Feng held the pseudo-world weapon in his hand and looked disdainfully at everyone. His divine aura filled the air and the light of treasures flowed. Ji Ji's face was solemn. He knew that the 7th prince wasn't suitable to be the emperor. However, there was nothing he could do now. The pseudo-world weapon was equivalent to the Realm Lord coming personally. Apart from the Realm Lord's chief disciple, who else could have a pseudo-world weapon? Are we going to let the 7th prince ascend the throne? Other than eating, drinking, and playing, why would he care about the life and death of the divine nation? The 4th prince roared angrily. He was unwilling, but there was nothing he could do. Let's wait. There's nothing I can do now. If we mobilize the Snow World army to fight to the death with him, who knows how many people will die in vain? Ji Gu shook his head and sighed. The pseudo-world weapon was too powerful. If a supreme god was hit by it, they would die without a doubt. If they wanted to defeat Muyun Feng, who had the pseudo-world weapon, they would need the bodies of millions of soldiers. I'm unwilling. The 4th prince roared hoarsely. So what if you're unwilling? Unless my master returns from his travels or finds Xiao Xingmin from the Xiao family, Fang Xiaoyi from the goddess sect, and Ling Huanyu, the 4 of us might be able to fight against the pseudo-world weapon. However, they won't take the risk, Ji Gu said helplessly. At this time, Yi Qinghan arrived late. He had just crossed the border river and rushed into the Snow Country's divine world. Come with me to the sacred city. Let's play something big. Yi Qinghan took Xiaoya and rushed into the sky. He stepped on the vast sky and appeared 1,000,000 miles away in the blink of an eye. His teleportation technique, stellar transposition, became faster and faster. The entire divine world was filled with a different aura.